This video is sponsored by Card Kingdom. If you click on the link in the description below, it'll take you to their store and they'll know I sent you there. Hello everyone, I'm Neat Sahone, and it is Friday, so that means it's time for another MTG Top 10. Magic's newest set right now is the enchantment-heavy Theros Beyond Death, a set with tons of cool enchantments and several auras that are actually good and limited, something most sets can't say. I actually thought I had done auras at some point among the 240 plus MTG Top 10s I've done, but it turned out I hadn't, so that's what we're doing today. And specifically, we are looking at auras with enchant creature. To be eligible for this list, an aura simply had to be able to enchant a creature, and it had to be a creature in play. This means reanimation spells that can target creatures in your graveyard were not eligible for this list. This could be auras you want to put on your own creatures, or those you're more interested in putting on your opponent's creatures. Enchant creature auras that you want to put on your own creatures don't tend to be very good on average. This is because they can quickly lead to card disadvantage. This means that for auras to be successful, they generally have to do something that makes that risk worth it, or have an effect that makes it so your opponent killing the enchanted creature is not a 2-for-1. Before we get started, a quick reminder on how I score cards for these lists. A Pro Tour and Mythic Championship Top 8, as well as Vintage and Legacy Championship Top 8s are worth 2 points, and a Grand Prix Top 8 is worth 1 point. Now let's get to number 10. At number 10, it's Daybreak Coronet, an aura that likes other auras. It grants an impressive stats boost and a slew of keyword abilities for only 2 mana, but if your creature doesn't have another aura on it, the Coronet can't be attached to it. This means that the Coronet is at its best in decks that are already super interested in putting auras on their creatures. In the intro, I mentioned that for most auras to be good, they have to do something that helps you avoid getting blown out in a 2-for-1, and Daybreak Coronet doesn't really do that. In fact, it puts you in danger of a 3-for-1. But that's only true if you're putting it on any old creature. Another way to get around the problem auras have is to put them on creatures with hexproof, since then the creature is going to be very difficult to remove. All of the Coronet's points in Modern come in decks running Slippery Bogle and Gladecover Scout, and the whole plan of those decks is to slap a bunch of auras on one of those and have an unstoppable creature who can win the game in only a couple of swings. Bogles is a deck still putting up some numbers in Modern, so the Coronet has a good chance at continuing to climb this list. At number 9, it's Curious Obsession, the newest card on the list. For only 1 mana, this gives a creature +1/+1, and the big thing is, it also makes the creature draw you a card every time it hits the opponent. That's how Curious Obsession deals with the aura downside, by drawing you cards, meaning that if this draws you even a single card, your opponent killing your creature is now just a 2-for-2, and if they can't kill it fast, they're going to be in a world of trouble. While in Standard, Curious Obsession was exclusively played in mono-blue aggro decks, which loaded up with cheap evasive creatures like Mistcloaked Herald and Terramander, who would be really good at getting in and drawing you cards with Curious Obsession. The Obsession isn't in Standard anymore, but it is powerful enough that we shouldn't be too surprised to see it put up some points in Pioneer going forward. At number 8, it's Ethereal Armor, which like Daybreak Coronet really likes other enchantments. This can provide a massive stats boost while also making it difficult to block your creature as a result of First Strike. While it has found some success in modern Bogles decks just like the Coronet, Ethereal Armor also found its way into aura-heavy hexproof decks in Standard, where putting Ethereal Armor on something like Geist of St. Traft represented a real nightmare scenario for your opponent, since he would hit hard and make a 4/4 Angel to attack them every single turn. At number 7, it's Pacifism. So far we've looked at auras which enhance your creatures, but that's not what Pacifism does. It's an aura that you put on your opponent's creatures as removal. Making a creature unable to attack or block is reasonably efficient for 2 mana, even if it can't shut down stuff like activated and static abilities. Pacifism has benefited from multiple reprints which have given it Standard legality multiple times. It has been a solid removal spell for many white decks in Standard over the years, although, interestingly, despite being legal in Standard right now, it isn't seeing any play, and it seems unlikely that it will. Not turning off creatures' abilities is a pretty big problem. At number 6, it's Unflinching Courage, which is a near-functional reprint of Armadillo Cloak, a card that would have been around number 14 if this list went further than top 10. This grants a creature an impressive stats boost to go along with the evasiveness of Trample, not to mention adding lifelink, which makes it very hard for your opponent to ever win a race. In Block and Standard, it was featured in aggro decks, which ran difficult-to-kill creatures like Fiendslayer Paladin and Fleecemane Lion. In Modern, it's been played in decks even more focused on that strategy, Bogles, which some of the cards we've already talked about have also been featured in. However, it wasn't featured in any of the Bogles decks that got points in 2019, so it seems to have fallen out of favor for that deck. At number 5, it's Boon Satyr, a creature who can be used like an aura thanks to the bestow mechanic. Both options you have with this card are pretty nice. A 3-mana 4/2 with flash can ambush a lot of stuff, and also suddenly put damage on the board out of nowhere, and a 5-mana aura with flash that gives +4/+2 is similarly attractive, as it can effectively negate many removal spells or make combat go horribly wrong for your opponent. Bestow is also a mechanic that keeps you from getting 2-for-1 most of the time, since if the creature Boon Satyr is attached to dies, he stays on the board as a 4/2, and that's some serious value for 5 mana. While in Standard, Boon Satyr was played in a lot of green aggro decks. He hasn't seen play since rotating out of Standard, and right now he isn't really being played in Pioneer either, so he could be done gaining points. At number 4, it's Dead Weight, another aura that's a removal spell. 1 mana to give a creature -2/-2 is a good deal, and that efficiency alone was enough for it to be played a bit in its first time in Standard, which was between 2012 and 2013. Its second time in Standard, which started in 2016, it was still, of course, a fairly efficient removal spell, but it came with the added bonus of helping decks get Delirium, as it provided a card type that usually wasn't that easy to get into the graveyard. As a result, it was played in a lot of black-green Delirium decks, which were highly successful. Deadweight also has 2 points in Legacy, gained between 2016 and 2017, in both cases appearing in bug mid-range decks. These decks were also interested in getting lots of card types into the graveyard, but in this case, it was because of Tarmogoyf. Deadweight hasn't gained any points since 2017, but it's another card that has a good shot at putting up points in Pioneer, and who knows, it could get some more points in Legacy too. At number 3, it's Rancor, which is arguably the best stats improving enchantment in the game. It's the one that's the highest up on this list, at least. Rancor has an interesting design history, as some of those who designed the set thought that they sent it to the printers costing 2 generic and 1 green, but in the end it came out as only 1 green mana. If you're interested in the details of that story, I went in depth on it in my MTG Top 10 on cards that got changed at the last minute. Anyway, 1 green mana for +2/+0 and trample is great and capable of making just about any creature into a threat. But where Rancor really gives you value is in the fact that you get it back anytime it gets sent to the graveyard. This means if the Rancored creature you control died, you could just get it back and stick it on another creature, instantly making it a threat for only 1 green mana all over again. In both block and Standard, it helped make mono-green aggro decks into a legitimate archetype. In its second run through Standard, it was played in Bant hexproof decks alongside Ethereal Armor. In Extended, it was featured in red-green aggro decks. And in Modern, it's been played in Infect decks, where the stats boost and evasion can be particularly nasty, as well as in Bogles. Rancor is still actively putting up points, so I think it has a very good chance at passing the number 2 card on this list. At number 2, it's Splinter Twin. This aura doesn't improve your creature's stats at all, but it does enable a bunch of silly combos. Most notably, it's been used in Standard, Legacy, and especially Modern, alongside Pestermite and Deceiver Exarch. When combined with those, Splinter Twin can make infinite tokens with haste that can swing for lethal. It was one of the premier decks in Modern from the format's creation until 2015, but that year it got banned out of the format, and has remained on the banned list ever since. Rancor isn't too far behind it, and unless Twin gets unbanned soon, it seems inevitable that it will surpass Splinter Twin. And at number 1, I actually have 3 cards, and that's because they are all mind control effects, and I didn't want them to take up 3 spots on this list. Threads of Disloyalty is a legitimate number 1 aura, Domestication would have been number 5, and Control Magic would have been number 7. Stealing an opponent's creature is among the most powerful things you can do in this game. This is because you are effectively casting a removal spell that then gives you a creature, and that's some serious power. Threads of Disloyalty comes in at number 1. While it's more narrow than the other 2, it costs less mana. Threads is great in formats with powerful creatures who have low converted mana costs. In Modern, for example, it has frequently stolen Tarmogoyf and Young Pyromancer, among other things. Domestication gained all of its points in Standard, and while it has some limitations, like Threads of Disloyalty, 4 mana to steal a creature is incredibly powerful, and there were plenty of good ones with less than 4 power in that Standard format. It was played mostly in Devotion to Blue decks too, where having as many permanents with blue mana symbols on the battlefield gave you extra value, and it was functionally a removal spell that stayed and pumped your devotion, which was great. Control Magic is the original version of this effect, and it was played a lot in Magic's early days. 4 mana to steal a creature with no downside at all is too powerful for Standard these days, and it's something we'll never see again. Well, that does it for this MTG Top 10. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like it and share it so that others can enjoy it too. If you want to make sure you catch future MTG Top 10s, don't forget to subscribe, and if you want to see the over 240 I've already done, you should see the playlist on your screen now. Thanks for watching.